4-year-old. He comes from Cordoba, not too far from this circuit, in fact, and was a Spanish F3 champion back in 2005. So again, Argentinian local knowledge is being brought into GT1 World Championship, which is it is a factor. So this first segment of qualifying has just begun. You can see the clock ticking away at the top. This is the longest segment of qualifying, just under 20 minutes to go on this one. But let's get down to the pits and get a little bit more news from the pits. It's Bas Linders.
Baz, you've had some difficulty with the engine, you've had to replace it, now you're going to have a penalty in the championship race. It can't leave you feeling positive going into qualifying.
Well, of course, it's when you have to change the engine and you lose a little bit of track time, it's not so good, but luckily the rain played in our advantage, so we didn't lose so much time. But yeah, 5 grid positions for the championship race, so meaning try to win the qualifying race, so we'll still be 5th on the grid in the second race.
Thank you.
So Bas Linders, team manager and driver, of course, at the Belgian team, and we'll see how Marc Villiers get on. Shame they've had to change the engine already today, though.
Yeah, another team that's going to suffer a 5 penalty drop is the Reiter team. Remember, back in Interlagos, Frank Kekela was adjudged to be wrong in that incident with Thomas Munch, and they, along with Sergio Jimenez, and that car is potentially one of the quickest cars here in the grid. So a shame that they've got to take that 5 penalty place drop.
So cars on circuit already. You're watching the number 22 Nissan of Jamie Campbell-Walter, who's at the wheel currently. He'll be being watched by teammate Warren Hughes down in the pits. And Jamie just getting himself up to speed. Everybody now really getting their first proper run on a new set of tyres. John, where are we on the circuit? What are we looking for here?
We're just about halfway round, coming out of turn 13. The drop downhill, much steeper than it looks on camera. Dab of the brakes, down a gear. The road falls away from you, then it continues to drop all the way down. And watching this bit of the circuit on television, it's like watching that memorable movie Bullet with Steve McQueen in his Mustang GT500 Shelby. In that, I mean, just what you couldn't want for better images on a street track, a road track.
Yeah, there's a really steep climb here. As you said when we went around it the other day, this could be a hill climb or a mountain climb, this bit. And they are literally going around the side of a mountain through this next left-hander. And now we're into the latter part of the lap. Yeah,
coming up to turn 20 and 21. This ought to be flat out, certainly in qualifying under normal circumstances. But today we haven't had those circumstances. We've had a limited amount of running this morning because people were being conservative with their tyre allocation. This afternoon we were running on a track that was still wet, dry in places, but principally very, very dirty from all that rain. And we're going to go through a further cleansing process of the track in this one hour of qualifying.
So across the line to set the initial pace, 2 minutes 44. We saw them down into the 2 minutes 16s this morning, but I doubt we're going to see something as quick as that because the track after the monsoon has actually got a lot more dirty. So the struggle for the drivers is to assess those track conditions.
The only person that may do so is one of the teams. They may choose to run one set of fresh tyres or not, depending. But of course, in that final top 10 shootout, that's when it will really be critical to determine whether you want to take a risk, run a set of tyres, or again go ultra conservative. But for me, a lot of people will run the new tyre.
Now we're at the other chicane. Well, this is the turn 5 and 6 chicane, and talking to Darren Turner as we did a little while ago, he said the chicanes here still have a bit of flow to them. They're not total stop-start chicanes, which is good news. And now this is a long blast actually. Up this hill is probably the fastest section of the track.
Yeah, coming through turn 8 and then continuing the long climb uphill, we get up to a bit of the circuit that's called Cliff Face, named after a famous Argentinian actor, Cliff Face.
And we've invented that name entirely ourselves because at the moment they've only got numbers, but you've got a cliff, you can just see it there. We'll see it more clearly from the onboard shots. There really is a no compromise corner. If you go off there, you're in big trouble.
And a bit of a struggle to get the Nissan into turn 10, 11 and then through 12 and 13. And the difficulty is coming through 10 because you instinctively want to hold the car tight against the curbing, but because it's then a very sharp turn to the left for turn 11, you've got to let the car run out and then bring it back in.
Now down to the bottom of the hill. If you go straight on here, you're on the main road to San Luis, just 20 kilometres away or less, but he turns sharp right, begins this steep climb. That's a great view because you can really get an idea of the ascent they're going through here. Round another tight hairpin right, back towards the big hotel that's up there, and then a fairly quick left. This is where there was a crash this morning, and one of the cars we've lost already is the number 12 Mad Croc Corvette. Not even in the rest of the weekend because it crashed just here.
Yeah, they did too much damage to the rear of the car, the chassis. It needs to go back in the jig. It's got to be sent all the way back to Detroit to Pratt and Miller, who look after the GM Chevy race program. sadly that car or its two drivers not able to continue.
So let's see what sort of lap times we're going to see now as Jamie Campbell-Walter continues around, setting obviously fastest sector times for the moment, but already others are beginning to match. So just being pushed back to fourth. Remember, Ford were dominating a moment ago. That has changed because we've seen Lopez go fastest in the Aston Martin, but then you have three Fords. This is the third of them, currently fourth, and he's on an improving lap. He's got green in sector 1, green in sector 2. That means he will improve, but probably not go fastest.
So currently, 2 and a bit tenths behind the Neil Yarni for GT. So comes across start finish line, goes second.
Very good, but not in the 2-minute 15 mark. He's still 0.8 of a second slower than Lopez. Lopez is going to be a bit of a star here by the looks of things, and he's got a quick co-driver in Stefan Mucker. Well, can the young driver number 8 car help the number 7 car, which is currently all the way down in 16th? Darren Turner has done a 2 minutes 17.8, so quite a long way off what Lopez has just achieved. But Turner's done very few laps here so far today. Got 5.5 minutes remaining in this first segment of qualifying. Bas Linders keeping an eye out to see what's going to happen with their car. There's Thomas Enger then. They are desperate within that camp, of course, to qualify well, and they need points from both the qualifying race and then they need to win the championship race to try and win the title.
And also that car is too close to the cut-off point for those that will drop out of the first qualifying session to go into the second and third.
That's right, because they are 16th currently, and it's the top 16 that go through. Darren Turner needs to find a bit of performance with this car and really move them up the order, if at all possible. Let's watch him, John, as he goes through the tight section, climbs the mountain.
Not showing anything particularly special. Got a personal best in the second sector, but he really needs to find substantial amounts of time to ensure that they're not on that 16th place bubble.
Yeah, he's got a car up ahead of him as well, so I wonder if that's going to hurt him in the final part of the lap. He's got this very quick S-bend just coming up. Thomas Enger studying the form. He's backed it off. He's going to save it up for another lap, apparently, by the looks of things. Maybe because there was a car up ahead, I don't know, but he's decided to back off and go for it next time around. Well,
the other car has actually gone into the pit lane, so now Darren Turner hopefully will have clear track ahead of him. But with the clock ticking away, just over 4 minutes of the session remaining and a 2-minute plus lap, he's going to have to get his skates on because he needs to get this lap and possibly one more available before then the flag will be out.
Interesting with this track being dirty in that the tyres may well last a few more laps. He was telling us earlier the tyres are holding up pretty well, and what's happening, although the tyre performance might go away slightly, the track at the same time is cleaning up. So you may well see that the best times are going to come in the last couple of moments of this qualifying segment.
Anyway, Darren Turner comes up into turn 4, the car plunges down the hill all the way into a major braking. I suppose the second major break of the lap. The first comes into turn 2, but that's on a curve, so you're not really hammering the brakes as you would do down into turn 5, where you've got a straight approach to the corner.
Personal best in the first sector there for Darren Turner, so he's on a better lap this time. He needs a bit of clear space. The good thing about this track, it's a big long track, as you mentioned earlier, just under 4 miles. There is space to spread them out, but you can bet that you're always still going to worry about traffic. Remember, Lopez is still fastest in the Aston Martin. Martin has gone up to second in his Ford. Westbrook pushed back to third. Yarni's fourth.
Looking at the split times, Darren Turner looks to be getting personal best there. You can see it on screen. Those green times indicate personal best. Not the quickest of anybody, but an improvement for Darren Turner in Aston Martin number 7.
But he's now into this long final sector, this daunting downhill right-hander. Then he's got to get it back over to the other side, braking downhill all the way here, and it's very tight down at the bottom of the hill. The V12 front-engine Aston responds beautifully to the steering, gets it turned in. Now it's all about power up this hill.
Well, power, but traction as well, because those 3 corners are either a mix of first and second gear, and it's imperative to ensure, as Mrs. Turner looking on rather nervously at Darren. But anyway, let's get back to the action, because there is Darren Turner on his way.
Yeah, he's on a good lap, but is it going to be enough? He is down out of it at the moment. 17th would not get him into the second segment of qualifying. Seiji Ara's not there yet, nor is Marcus Paltala, nor, interestingly, is Nicky Pastorelli in the Lamborghini. That's surprising because they were on right up front row in Brazil. Let's see what this lap is then for Darren Turner. He goes 12th. Well, he goes safe for now, but I tell you what, he'd really want to be a bit further up inside the top 10 to feel comfortable, because we might see a few better laps in the closing stages of this session.
Well, this is going to be his last lap, with now under a minute and 40 seconds remaining. He can't get back before the flag comes out to do an additional lap. So this is going to be the last time lap for that particular Aston Martin with Darren Turner.
Richard Westbrook analysing what they've done. Their third quickest, comfortably into second segment of qualifying. He'll be handing the car over to his teammate Thomas Much for Q2, but for the moment it's Lopez fastest still. Well, now let's go on board the number 23 Nissan. Here we are. Oh, and we've just seen another change. Bertolini's just gone fourth fastest, so a good lap from Bertolini, and Turner's been pushed down to 13th as a result of another improvement in there as well. So it's still nervous for those guys who are at the bottom end and outside the top 10.
But let's not forget that Aston Martin with Darren Turner and Thomas Enger behind the wheel are carrying 40 kilograms of additional weight, and on the uphill section of this racetrack, that is punishing the Aston Martin on almost to the point where Darren's driving the wheels off, but it's like carrying you and me together in the car.
Well, he's certainly in there at the moment in terms of getting that top 16, but 14th doesn't give him much margin. You're on board with Peter Dunbreck here.
And he was well off track on the exit coming out of turn 9.
Now this is the end of the lap he's coming to now, isn't it? So he's fifth at the moment. He stays fifth. No change there. His last lap was a fraction slower, 2/10 slower than his previous best. So consistent lap, but not quite quick enough to further improve. So out of it at the moment, we're looking at Bernoldi, surprisingly, John. Bernoldi 17th, Wendlinger's 18th, Ara's 19th, and Henrici in the Corvette. Now that's another shocker, because Henrici, a battler for a top 3 place in the championship in the Drivers' Series, has also not in there at the moment. Currently looking at the number 22 Super Power Nissan, which is just in, but only just. Jamie Campbell-Walter is currently 15th, and it's top 16, remember, going through to segment 2. So it's a bit marginal there, but the clock has ticked away to 0, and this is a good lap for him. Jamie Campbell-Walter's on a much better lap here.
And fiddling just behind the steering wheel, making changes right on the limit. He ran the car all the way out to the edge of the wall coming out of turn 19. Had to make an adjustment on the steering, just to the left of the steering, fighting the wheel all the way through, coming across.
Let's see what it does. It's going to improve him, I think. Across the line he goes. No, it doesn't change. He stays 16th on a 2:17.2. It's actually a slightly better time, but Turner has made it through just. Turner 15th in the Aston Martin. What about this car? Enrique Bernoldi, if he got across... Yeah, he did. This could be interesting. This could push Jamie Campbell-Walter and Warren... No, Turner's just been pushed down. Somebody else has just improved. Try and spot who... I think it wasn't Neil Yarni. Somebody else has just popped up in the top 16. Turner is now 16th. He could be pushed out by this car.
Absolutely. This is the car that's most likely going to do so, because now Darren Turner, having gotten up to 13th, has fallen down by the car coming across the line. And with the Maserati Enrique Bernoldi behind the wheel, the winner, of course, that's car winning in Interlagos 1 week ago, but carrying penalty ballast this weekend, still is in a position to move forward into the second qualifying event, but to the detriment of possibly the young drivers Aston Martin.
Yeah, this is marginal stuff for Aston Martin. They're going to be chewing their fingernails at this point. They could be out of the top 16 here. Maserati about to cross the line. Yes, it is. It's moved right up there. Bernoldi's gone fourth. No, not fourth. He's gone, let's see, the 10th place, and it's pushed Turner. It's pushed Turner out of the second segment of qualifying. Real drama. That's Miguel Ramos. He's happy because Bernoldi's got them in there into 10th place. But this is disaster for the team that could Martin. Still win. He takes the fastest time. He'll hand the car over to Stefan Mucker for the second part. But the Fords are strong too. Look, Mark VDS car second, and then the Martek car there in third place of Westbrook and Much. Then the first of the Maseratis is the Bertolini Bartels car, the championship leaders, followed by a Nissan of Dunbreck and Michael Krum. Michael takes over for the next part. Then the Alex Muller Maserati, sixth fastest. Then you've got the other Martek car, Neil Yarni, going seventh. The Maserati of Pierre Guidi and Verdonk, eighth quickest. And then the number 37 Lamborghini with the new driver, Riccardo Rizzati. He ended up ninth. Mark Basseng takes over for the second part of qualifying. The Hexis car of Macavicki and Claret sits 10th at the moment. They've made it through, obviously, to the second segment. Bernoldi and Ramos scraped through in the latter stages of that session, and Frank Kekela's got his Reiter Lamborghini. He'll be handing to Sergio Jimenez. He could be pretty fast in this next part. So the others that are through are the number 24 Reiter Lamborghini of Peter Cox, the number 13 Corvette, crucially there, of Mark Henrici, championship frontrunner, and also the number 10 Aston Martin of Clivio Piccioni. The final one into the top 16, Nicky Pastorelli and his Lamborghini, but dramatically out of qualifying for the rest of the day now. Darren Turner and Thomas Enger in their Aston Martin. Jamie Campbell-Walter Coulter and Warren Hughes in their Nissan. Another Mark VDS Ford of Paltala and Bobby. And then the two Swiss Racing Team Nissans, they are still struggling and they still can't get that car to work in qualifying. They only have a
car I'm going to keep my eye on is the number 25 Reiter Lamborghini with Sergio Jimenez in the wheel now. That's the car Frank Kekela ran just a few moments ago. I was very impressed with Jimenez when he drove the Mad Croc Corvette in practice in Interlagos. Of course, he was sharing with the amateur team owner of that car, and then really the competitiveness of the car overall was hampered by Petit Musaman. He couldn't compete in time with Sergio Jimenez. So that car, 25 Reiter, that could be one of the dark horses of this second qualifying segment.
Well, it's underway already, and this is a 15-minute segment, so they get a little bit less time each time we go into the qualifying segments, and we've got drivers 2 in the car now, so they've taken over from their teammates, and that changes things around. You're looking at the Nissan car number 23, so Peter Dumbreck has handed over to Michael Crum. The Jose Maria Lopez car now, the other Aston Martin that was quickest in that first session, has been handed over to Stefan Mucker, who is a very rapid driver indeed. It's Christopher Nygaard who has been replaced just for this race weekend by the Argentine specialist Lopez, so that's where the change has occurred. Still looking as they come down the hill there past the hotel at Michael Crum as he gets the Nissan up to speed, building up a bit of tyre temperature as well, down to the lowest point on the circuit and into the twistiest section as well.
So down to first gear, still first gear, and possibly even for the third, the right-hander, first gear. It's very short between these three corners, and what you try to do is be clean and neat as possible, but not overload the rear tire, particularly if you're a front engine car. Now, the Aston Martin happens to be a front engine car, the car that Jose Maria Lopez set his time on, and when the tyres are young and fresh, that's probably not going to make much difference. It'll be when the tyres get a little bit more use, and whether they're now all back onto the set of tyres they ran in the first qualifying segment, I would be surprised too many are going to throw a new set on for this, but we don't know.
No, we'll have to wait and see. Just over 12 minutes to go. Most of the cars are, I think, heading out, although we haven't seen any times obviously set in this second segment of qualifying. They can't hang around. It is such a long lap. It doesn't mean that they can sit in the pits for very long. They've got to get on with the programme and get out. Great viewing points around this circuit, and I gather tomorrow we're likely to see an awful lot of people hanging onto the hillsides in their attempts to get a good view of these cars, and of course the Argentinian touring cars. Really is a brilliant place to watch because you can overlook that entire circuit. And what's also interesting, John, is how the width of the circuit where it varies. Some places like here got a lot of width, a lot of space, but that mountain section is really quite narrow.
Indeed, I mean, this is what, 50, well, not 50 metres, it's certainly 30 metres or so wide as any racetrack as I've ever visited. But on the return leg at the bottom of the hill down at turn 18, it narrows up considerably, and it would go maybe down to 20 metres. It's a substantial difference between this part of the racetrack and the return leg from turn 18.
Public road, we were on it the other day in our hire car. We had coaches coming in the opposite direction, cars towing trailers, and if you want to catch up with a bit of more sort of background information on the circuit and so much more with GT1, then don't forget the website gt1world.com, where you can see behind the scenes.
And I could just say, there's water, there's fluid coming from the left-hand side. Now, whether that is something that was picked up and he spun over the curb, but there appeared to be fluid, from my perspective, coming from the near side of that Nissan, just behind the near side front wheel.
So a spin for Michael Crum. That's not going to help his cause, but he's got away with it without hitting anything. Plenty of space down at that chicane to do so, and he's going to have to write that lap off and start all over again.
And the reason he lost it was because coming out of turn 9 and into turn 10, he held a different line to many of the other cars we've seen from the on-board, and I wasn't surprised that it looked all wrong in the entry into turn 11, and then of course he had to turn away, but there was water or liquid for some description coming from behind the near side front wheel. It may have been water that was in the curb which he ran over. Now,
interestingly, Stefan Mucker, who's taken over the number 8 Aston, comes into the pits despite a good first sector, but he's decided to come back in
on another lap.
So clearly into the top 8, which is what they're all chasing. Remember now, 1 or 2 cars yet to set a time, including Michael Crum. We saw him have his spin earlier. Stefan Mucker, who we saw come into the pits when he was on a reasonable lap. So they haven't actually set a time. I say that Mucker's just gone across the line onto a flying lap now, so we'll get an idea. Also still going the Hager, both the Hager Sport Maseratis are both in the top 16. So we've got Nico Verdonk in one car, Alfred Hager himself in the other car, both of them not yet into the top 8.
Pretty busy racetrack. We've got 15 cars on track. In fact, all 16 cars are now back out on track. So in the closing minutes, just over 5 minutes and 40 seconds, it's going to get tight.
And the big question is, can Thomas Much match Westbrook's time in any form and get into the top 8 so that Westbrook can get a chance to get into the number 5 car, the 5 Ford, and really attack for pole position in the final segment? You're on board with Thomas Much. Thomas is team manager and driver. Was out of luck in Brazil. He had that tangle with Frank Kekkeler, which effectively ended both their championship chances of winning outright, but they're both still going for second place in the championship.
I tell you, he may not be quick, but he is looking like it. He's pushing very hard. Problem is, there's a car ahead, and that's going to interfere with his lap. Coming through turns 5 and 6, Ford runs out wide, just runs the curb, and pressure from behind as well. Looking in his mirrors, Maserati looking ahead of him. Well, where's that car going to come into play?
First sector's good, 28.1 compares to 27.9 for the best overall in that first sector. So Much is flying. He might not be quite as quick as Westbrook, but I tell you, he's no slouch. He's proved it throughout this year. He's got a good middle sector as well. And I think Thomas Much is really enjoying this big, demanding circuit. He is going well. He's got every chance, if he can get a clear run on this last sector, which is very long, to get into the top 8. Into the chicane he comes here, John. How does this look?
Well, it looks fair. I mean, there's nothing particularly special, but it's about being clean, about being consistent. And then this drop down the hill. Now, we didn't see the Aston Martin with Darren Turner having one of the cars didn't go down the gears, one of the Nissans. We don't know what Ford GT is doing, but at least it's got 2 personal bests. You can't do better than that except go quickest overall. So Thomas Munch is pushing and looking further down the times.
Yeah, he's doing all right at the moment. He needs to move up from 13th, which is where he is currently. His middle sector time, not as quick. He's about 6/10 off the best on the middle sector, but still it should be enough to get into the top 8. And Stefan Mucker's gone quickest on a 1:15.6. So the guy who is teammate to the quick Argentinian Lopez has taken the number 8 Aston to the top of the times again, as we saw in segment 1 of qualifying.
Yes, and that car had the fastest of overall on the second sector. I just had to wait until he finished a lap to another 1.5 minutes.
Let's see what Much does as he crosses the line. He goes 4th. That's a great lap by Thomas Much. He will get Westbrook back in that car if he stays there. Let's look at the expression.
Well, there's a look that says, well, I'm relieved to see my teammate has done his bit for us, stroke me, up into 4th place. But remember, 3 minutes just over remaining. Things can change. I wouldn't say anybody's safe. 4th down to the 10th.
And at the moment, this car, the number 1 Vitaphone Maserati, championship leaders, with Michael Bartels now on board, is not in that top 8. How's he looking? First sector good, second sector not so good, not green. So will he get into the top 8? This could see the demise of the number 1 car for the final part of qualifying, unless they can find a bit of speed, looking to get past both the Hexis Aston Martins in terms of performance, if they're to break into the top 8.
It'll be very disappointing indeed now they've had all the ballast removed from this car. They would expect to put themselves certainly in the front 2 or 3 rows of the grid.
He's done it.
Go 4th.
He's 4th, so he's got ahead of the Ford of Thomas Much, so he has got into that top 8 for the moment. Unless we see a lot of improvements in the final 2.5 minutes, he should be relatively safe there. But there are still some quick guys behind that might further improve. Michael Krum is still down in 14th place at the moment. I think he would be likely to improve. There's Peter Cox. He's already put in some good laps himself. It's his teammate Christopher Haas who's got their car 3rd quickest in this session. Remember, the Reiter cars are 2nd and 3rd right now, but it's the Aston Martin number 8 car of Stefan Mucker, which is on top of the pile on a 2-minute 15.6, a full 0.4 of a second faster than anybody else. So whatever Lopez has taught Stefan Mucker is certainly working.
Back to the Nissan, so they're making their way. Personal best, but more importantly, fastest of anybody in that first sector, and gets it right this time. Clean entry, good mid-section, and out of the corner. So Michael Krum, who we saw have that spin earlier in this session, now makes his way around the rest of the circuit.
Must go and Michael a little bit wide there. I must go and ask him whether this track reminds him of any tracks he's raced on in Japan. Of course, he's done so much racing in Japan, John. So extensive a career out there and very successful, but his name perhaps a little bit lost in European circles because he has made such a career of it out there.
Well, he's got to be very careful, and he's made an error in turn 19 coming up the hill. Don't know why, just suddenly seemed to lose that momentum. Then he's regained it up through this is now turn 19. Watch the wall on the outside, don't overdrive it. and then the track falls away one way, then through the S's. Ought to be flat out. It just depends how much grip you've got left in your car.
Time is ticking away, under a minute to go, the second segment of qualifying. Will they be in the top 8? At the moment he's only 14th. Car 40 has hit the wall apparently. That's one of the Mark VDS Fords, has lost the rear wing. Let's see what Dumbreck does across the line. Yes, he's gone third. That's a great lap by Michael Crum, and despite the odd little mistakes on that last sector, he's put himself well and truly into the final segment of qualifying. He's split the two Reiter Lamborghinis.
Well, that's the benefit of getting a fastest sector of anybody on this sector. 3 sectors around the racetrack, so that will be relief and delight for that number 23 Nissan.
So Sumo Power, there's Nigel Stepney here, there's the relief. He is delighted about that. Remember, they lost one of their cars in the first segment of qualifying. They are desperately chasing third in the team's championship. They're battling with young driver Aston Martin in particular for that. Young driver Aston, though, of course, on top of the pile with their number 8 car of Lopez and Stefan Mucker. So the battle is still well and truly raging here. And the cars that are not likely to make it through at the moment as the clock ticks to 0, well, Nico Verdonk's just been pushed down to 9th place. Bas Minders isn't going to make it. They're the ones that hit the wall somewhere. Jan Claret in the Aston Martin, Dominic Schwager, Miguel Ramos I don't think is going to get the other Vitaphone car in the top 8, and Alex Margaritis is not going to get the Corvette in the top 8. That's a big story too. Mark Basseng and Alfred Hager are the others who aren't going to come out in the final part of qualifying. Maybe 1 or 2 improvements. Let's just see though before we call it for sure. This car, John, is already in though, pretty safe.
Yes, just coming up to the conclusion of a lap there, because it's such a long lap. We see the checkered flag out, and if you just come across the line seconds before the flag goes out, we've got to wait another 2 minutes and 15 or plus seconds before we can see if there is any final change to the order of this second qualifying segment.
Yeah, so we need to watch that, but for the moment it's still Stefan Mucker on top with the number 8 Aston Martin. They're going to hope to top the times in each and every qualifying session here. Of course, the car will be returned to the hands of Jose Maria Lopez for the final segment of qualifying, and I'm sure he's relishing the task on home soil to prove just what he can achieve. The Fords are now, interestingly, with improvements. Thomas Much, John, has been pushed down to 9th, and Westbrook is not going to get his chance to come back out and play.
Well, that was always the danger. You think you're safe, but if you're not in the sort of... Well, he was 4th at the time he said it, and I said there's still an opportunity that place could be knocked back. As Clivio Piccioni.
He's nervous because he's now 8th and he's waiting to see whether he will get the chance to come back out. And in the meantime, it was one of his teammates who suddenly realised that was Fred McAvicky now getting ready, because Jan Claret just scraped their car into 7th place. There's Fred. He's now getting ready. He wasn't ready, but now, because Jan Claret's banged in a quick lap, they are into the final segment of qualifying. It's put Westbrook and Thomas Much down to 10th now, and their Ford is out. So is the other Martech Ford of Neil Yarni and Nicholas Armindo. And a big improvement just there as well by Michael Bartels. Bartels has taken the Vitaphone Maserati to 2nd. 1 minute 15.7. Well, that was an impressive lap.
Well, that's right. We had to wait because the Maserati just went across start-finish line seconds before the flag came out. So while we're saying we think the top 8 are, we weren't able to say it. Now we can say with some certainty that it is the Aston Martin of Stefan Mucker ahead or alongside of Michael Bartels in the Maserati.
Disappointment in the end for the Martech team. You're looking at Nicholas Armindo there, and both cars very evenly matched, but they didn't quite get into the top 8, so 9th and 10th is the worst place to be in a way, isn't it? But there you are, and this car, number 1, has made it through with a very quick lap at the end. 2nd quickest. This Maserati is working well here, and I tell you what, it's going to be ever so difficult to beat them over the course of the weekend. They are trying to win everything. They're trying to win the driver's title for Bertolini and Bartels. They're trying to win the team's championship as well, and on this kind of form they've got every chance of doing it.
Well, I would certainly think that there's a very good chance we'll see new tyres for 2 runs for Andrea Bertolini.
So fastest, the number 8 Aston Martin of Lopez and Stefan Mucker. Mucker setting the time there, but Bartels putting in a lap that was only 99 thousandths of a second slower. Sergio Jimenez, his first time in the Lamborghini, he's gone 3rd quickest, but a great lap from Michael Crum towards the end there to put the Nissan in 4th place. Also going well, the other Reiter Lamborghini of Christopher Haas, who returns the car to Peter Cox now, and another Lambo up there, that's the Al Inkel car of Dominic Schwager. He's done that just towards the end as well. And the 2 Hexis Aston Martins have sneaked in, so Fred McAvicky will get a chance in the final part of qualifying, as will his teammate Clivio Piccioni, but out both Martech Fords, so Westbrook is not going to get the chance to jump back in there. The Triple H Maserati of Pierre Guidi and Verdon then the Mark VDS car of Martin and Leinders. They will therefore line up in 12th place on the grid in the qualifying race tomorrow. And also not making it through, the second Vitaphone Maserati of Miguel Ramos. Interestingly, the Corvette hasn't made it through. Margaritis wasn't quick enough, nor was Basseng, and Alfred Hager will start from 16th on the grid.
Couple and contact.
Yep, and that number 7 Aston, which we saw earlier, didn't quite make it into the second segment of qualifying. So the clock is already ticking. We're into the third and final segment. This is to determine the order of the top 8 cars on the grid. And those cars are going to be the number 1 Vitaphone Maserati of Bartels and Bertolini. It's going to be the number 8 Aston Martin, which has dominated things so far. Not going to be the car of Miguel Ramos that we're looking at now, but we're going to have 2 Aston Martins. That's Fred Makovici and Clivio Piccioni. We're going to have 1 Nissan, the car of Peter Dunbrek. We're going to have a couple of Reiter Lamborghinis, the cars of Peter Cox and Frank Kekkeler, and another Lamborghini, the Alinkel car of Nicky Pastorelli. That's the top 8. Those are the cars that we're fighting for pole position as we go through the next 8 3/4 minutes here in this absolutely stunning environment. Perfect track conditions now. Track beginning to clean up a bit, so they should potentially be able to go a little quicker.
Yeah, and then not only is the track cleaning up, but the key is getting a line on the racing line to enable those fresh rubber that teams no doubt have held back as many as they could do. They'll get only 2 runs on out lap, a flying lap, come back in and then maybe run a second set of new tyres if they feel the need to do so. And I suspect because of the conditions the track are in right now, although it is improving, it's still not yet at the level it would love to be at to give these guys, the best opportunities.
Frank Kekkeler in the number 25 car, which is what he's shared with Ricardo Zonta, remember, successfully on a couple of occasions. These guys took pole position at Navarra just a couple of races ago. They were 3rd on the grid at Spa as well. So they've had some good qualifying performances this year. Can now Frank Kekkeler really stamp his authority and claim a pole position for the Lamborghini?
Yeah, a little bit loose coming through turn 18, 19. Then the climb up the hill, and there Michael Bartels looks fairly happy. He's done his bit. He's got his driver second quickest that car into the final qualifying segment. And I've just got a feeling that Andrea Berta is going to do something here. He was confident. He knows he's got a car now which is running in its most competitive trim, and they want to put that car on pole to dominate the race and take that championship from the front.
And don't forget, they do have an advantage, that pairing, in that they raced here 2 years ago. The only other time that FIA GT came to this circuit, Bartels and Bertolini finished in 5th place, and that track knowledge, as we've already seen from the performance of Lopez and the way he's been able to help Stefan Mucker, is massively valuable. If you've driven here, it will help you, because they've done very little running so far today, and there's no doubt that track knowledge on a complicated, intricate and very challenging circuit like this makes a big difference.
And that made such a big difference for Enrique Banolde to win in Interlagos with Sandy Negrão, a local Brazilian driver familiar with Interlagos. So that car was transformed with a very level performance from the 2 Brazilian drivers. But now, with Miguel Ramos back in the car, sadly for Maserati and for Bertolini and Ramos, they were nowhere.
There's Sergio Jimenez, teammate to Frank Kekkeler, just for this weekend. Remember, I think that's a good effort for Jimenez to get the car into the top 8. First time he's ever driven this Lamborghini. I don't think he's driven here before. Must go and check with him later whether he's actually raced on this circuit. But nonetheless, getting in the car for the first time, that was impressive, and getting it into the top 8.
Yeah, he told us the differences between the Lamborghini and the Corvette, which he was driving, of course, in Interlagos. And interestingly, he feels the Lamborghini feels much more like a single-seater race car rather than a GT car.
That's right, mid-engine layout, of course, so he's more used to that kind of feeling from a mid-engined car, and he says it stops well. And looking at the lap times, Kekkeler's pushing hard here.
Yeah, it looks like this is going to give us certainly the quickest provisional time at this point, but we've only got 5 3/4 seconds remaining, and wait to see whether he can consolidate as he gets to the bottom of the hill. Now the climb again, back up steep to the left. Sunlight again interfering very much, certainly on the camera in the car. I don't know how much it's affecting the driver. They do run those visor strips, and you can see the back of the car again just snapped out, back up through the gears and into turn 20.
Interesting, that turn 20, the quicker guys are going in middle of the road. They don't go right out. That's probably due to the camber of the road at that point, and a lot of the quick guys not going in so wide.
But you're going from bright sunlight in your eyes then into dark shade, because the mountain literally is beside the racetrack, into sunlight again over that remaining bit of water running across the track. So this, in theory,
First time.
Yes, 2:15.4.
Yeah, it's a good first lap, but I tell you what, there are some potentially quicker cars behind. Lopez is quick through the first couple of sectors, and Clivia Piccioni's just crossed the line, second quickest, and Dumbreck's going well. Cox has just gone second quickest. So again, Reiter go 1-2 for the moment, but you're on board with Lopez in the number 8 Aston Martin, which is unbeaten so far in the 3 qualifying segments. Can they do it again in this one?
Quickest of anybody through the first sector, personal best through the second sector. The back end of the Aston scrabbling for grip as he comes out of turn 19, then into 20.
Oh no, he's lost it, spins the Aston Martin. Oh, that's not good news. Let's hope that they get the yellows out. They do very quickly, the marshal. And we've got, I think, Dumbreck coming past.
Yeah, and it's bad news for everybody else who's following, because the racetrack at this point narrows down significantly. Murka gets the car around, or Lopez, I beg your pardon, gets the car around. But what damage has he done to his time? Well, that time for sure, that's rubbish. And maybe his tyres have been rubbished as well in that spin. Well,
he kept it off the walls. That perhaps shows some skill and some awareness, but nonetheless, is he going to come in? No, he's going to continue round for another lap.
Well,
look at the time. I suppose in some ways there's not much time in this session.
No, there's not. And again, kicks the back of the car as he goes through that final damp patch. And from all the great sort of expectations, then suddenly they find themselves...
Just to interrupt, another Aston Martin has just gone quickest though. It's the Fred Makovicky car of the Hexis team. That's a good effort. Very, very good from the French driver. He is a good qualifier. I tell you, Makovicky's impressed us on a number of occasions. Meanwhile, we're looking here at Andrea Bertolini, currently third quickest on a 2 minutes 16.3.
Down out of turn 9 into turn 10, pulls the car tight, doesn't let the car run too wide, gets in for 11, clean across the track to 12, and then exit out of 13.
Yeah, as he comes down the hill, third gear, fourth gear. This is the quick right-hander that we've been talking about. Just lose a little bit there. He does change down to third for that one, interestingly enough. Some of them say they might be taking fourth through there, and then down through the box, down to first gear, into the tight, twisty uphill section, and the lights go out as you get there.
I mean, it really is such a contrast, coming down the hill, almost into total darkness, then into light, then again darkness.
Yeah, it's challenging, but Bertolini's up for it, and Bartel's watching to see what he can do. Third fastest at the moment, it's Makovicky, who's currently quickest in the Aston Martin. Kekula second, Piccioni is third, Bertolini here fourth, then Pastorelli. Cox has just gone third quickest in the Reiter Lamborghini though, so changes already. Dumbreck is seventh, Lopez currently eighth, having had that spin on his first attempt. So here we are looking on board with the Vitaphone number 1 car. Bertolini trying to move up from now what he is in 5th, because he's just been displaced a little bit. Is this going to be an improvement for the Italian across the line? Yes, he goes 3rd again. So Bartel's happy about that, but it's not the top spot just yet. And we're in the 14s now. Makovicky's just done a 2 minute 14.7. He's gone quicker again as we're now watching Lopez. This time he's going to try and keep it in a straight line.
He's got to keep it in a straight line. He's got fastest of anybody in that middle sector. He now gets through turn 19 cleanly. There you see the skid marks from his incident just a lap ago. And now it's onwards towards the, well, not quite the checkered flag. He will get one more lap on a set of tyres that have been punished with that spin.
Let's see what he can do. Lopez really fired up, having survived from the spin on the previous lap. Splashes through the water again as he comes around onto start-finish straight. This could be a great lap. Let's see, is it enough? He goes fastest. It's a 2:14.0. A brilliant lap by the Argentinian driver, recovering from a spin. And look at the smiles down there in the young driver camp.
Well, they've got reason to smile, but this is not over. We've got 1 minute and 12 seconds remaining, and anything still can happen. Watch out for the Maserati. Just watch out for anybody who's in this session.
That's right. Also, keep an eye on Dumbreck, although he's down in 8th place at the moment. Hasn't been able to move up from there. Aston Martins, though, John, we've got 3 of the 4 Aston Martins in this race. Look at this spin, and how well did he do?
He did it very well indeed to keep the car off the walls. There's not a lot of space. Fortunately, the speed of that corner is not, turn 19 is not sufficiently high to let the momentum carry the car into the wall. Nevertheless, heart in mouth for the team in the pit lane.
Just over 30 seconds to go in this session. Are we going to see any more improvements? That's going to be the question. Lopez is still out there. No purple sector times coming up on our timing screens. I don't think anyone's looking to be able to challenge it at the moment. It looks as though it could be pole position for these guys, but let's just wait and see. There is an opportunity still to get across the line and go on to another lap here. On board with Andrea Bertolini, who's now been pushed down to 4th place on a 2 minutes 15.6.
And it's basically all over for the Maserati. They're going to run out of time, but this lap will count. He's had a personal best in the first sector, nothing any better in the second sector. All he can hope to do is consolidate. He might make up one place. I doubt many more.
So Aston Martin first and second at the moment. He's gone to third though. Bertolini does gain a bit there. He's gone to third. So Aston Martin 1, Aston Martin 2, Maserati 3, Lamborghini 4, Aston Martin 5, then Lamborghini, and Nissan.
You know, all this goes against my thoughts of the cars that will be best suited to this racetrack. I thought the mid-engine cars, because of their weight distribution, but it's been Aston Martin. It's been an Aston Martin fest.
So that's amazing. That really is incredible that he's been able to do that, Lopez, on his first acquaintance with the Aston Martin. What a brilliant effort that is. Meanwhile, some other good, strong performances within the mix there. And I think that Peter Cox will be happy that both Reiter cars are up there. Kekula in fourth place. Cox himself is in sixth, and you're riding on board the Reiter car right now. And of course, they're still pushing for points in the team's championship, and they've got both their cars up there. And if anything were to happen to Bertolini and Bartels, there's still a chance for Reiter perhaps to claim the team's crown. Past our commentary box, I can tell you, I've just seen the pole position sitter drive past our commentary position coming into the pits. Well, we're going to get to him in a minute as we're still riding around the rest of the lap here on board the Lamborghini.
Well, the drop all the way down into turn 18 is the Maserati, and I think that he crossed the start-finish line with the flag out. It was hard just to tell. So they are making their way
fairly
as
slowly
everyone back to the pit lane.
Yeah, they're all taking it fairly easy now. But what a drama! What an amazing finale for Jose Maria Lopez to have that spin. You know, the pressure was on. We were watching him. He was up on the split times, and then he just let the back end of the car get a bit too out of shape. He controlled it, got back. He got into the circuit again. He went straight off and came round with a lap that has ended up being 0.3 of a second faster than anybody else. 2 minutes 14.4. A brilliant effort by the Argentinian, the 27-year-old. He comes from Rio Tercero, which is not that far away. It's a couple of hours drive from here.
Well, I think the point I would like to make is maybe Jose Maria Lopez isn't just a pay or rent a driver.
No.
He's actually a very gifted and talented driver. To jump into a car he's never raced before on a demanding circuit like this in San Luis. Strong performance.
Well, anyone who can beat Robert Kubica, even early in the career in Formula 3, has got to be something pretty special. We all know how good Kubica is in Formula 1, and Lopez was ahead of him in that Italian F3 series, and he's had a lot of success. He's raced in GP2 as well, but then missing out on that opportunity with US F1. Nonetheless, he's come and impressed us here today. So here we go. The top 8 positions on the grid will line up like this, with a dominant performance throughout every qualifying session for the number 8 Aston Martin of Jose Maria Lopez and, of course, teammate Stefan Mucker. The Aston Martins, though, were very strong. Makovicky and Claire second fastest. Then, getting in there, the championship leaders of Bertolini and Bartels. They'll start third on the grid, very happy about that. The Reiter Lamborghini, number 25 car of Kekula and Jimenez, will start in 4th place. The other Hexis car of Piccioni and Hershey, very good effort from them, starting 5th. And then the Reiter Lamborghini, the other car, the 24 machine of Peter Cox and Christopher Haas, will start 6th. And showing that it's a good track for the Murcielago, the Alinkel car of Pastorelli and Schwager will start 7th. And missing out a bit at the end there, the Nissan of Dumbreck and Michael Krum. But nonetheless, the Sumo Power cars potentially showing that they've got good pace. And look how narrow the margin was between them and